Welcome to The Bench, where we ask WA's politicians to take a breather and tell us a bit about themselves. Hi, I'm Peter Klinger from Canning's Purple, and joining us on the bench today is Zak Kirkup, who in March was elected to State Parliament as a member for Dawesville. Hi Zak, thanks for joining us on the bench.
Thanks for having me, Peter. It's good to be here.
Zak, who are you?
I'm the youngest member of the Parliamentary Liberal Party, representing the district of Dawesville down in in the Peel region, south of Perth, and very happily elected in the last election. Very happy to have got the opportunity to fulfil my dream of becoming a member of Parliament.
Tell us a bit about you and how you started on this journey and before you got into politics, although some people will say you've long harboured ambitions, of course, to enter politics.
And they'd be right. I have since I was very, very young wanted to get into political life and certainly to serve the people of Western Australia in Parliament. Initially that was something that had a federal focus. I'm reminded often of the business card that I handed the former Prime Minister John Howard that said, or then Prime Minister John Howard that said, Zak R.F. Kirkup, future Prime Minister. But since that point in time and where we are today, there's been a whole lot of activity involved in politics, working for senators and members of Parliament, and then Deputy State Director of the Liberal Party, winning a couple of election campaigns, working for Colin Barnett as a policy advisor. It's been a sort of my whole life. I've been brought up in the Liberal Party, and for better or for worse.
What is it about politics? So not just being an elected member, but the political machine, and yeah. we'll get on to party politics later, but what is it about politics that's so appealing as opposed to being a lawyer and mounting a strong argument?
Sure. I mean, I've always liked the idea of serving. I've always liked the idea of serving people in Western Australia, serving West Australians generally speaking. I mean, that's to me was what Parliament was all about. Parliament is all about. I think any member of Parliament should be about serving the people first, before politics and before themselves. To me, that's the strength of politics, is that you can make such significant improvements in people's lives, often without them even knowing. You know, members of Parliament work their life to get roads upgraded or build a new school or whatever that might be. That massively changes someone's life, communities' lives for the better. That's always been the draw card for me, is just how great and how positive an impact you can make on someone's life.
You're part of a generation, of course, that by and large is probably not particularly enamoured with politicians. I would suggest not too many of your peer group, your friends from school, or the people you hang around with, your age group, would have pursued a similar career.
It's something that I think any institution, really, government, religion, organised religion, even as we see now, things like the Hollywood and the media, struggle with to try and translate what it is that they're really doing a lot of the time. So you're right, there's not a whole lot of faith in politicians from the younger generation. I would argue there probably hasn't been for many generations now. But they are all engaged. That's the very big difference. It's because of social media and things like that now. I think people are more aware than ever before. They can seek out their own news, they can seek out what's going on in their community. It can be very local now compared to what used to be sort of a statewide media coverage that they had to sit down in front of the TV and watch or read in the paper. Now it's young people are more engaged. I still think, young people are far more engaged. Might not be in party politics, but certainly in local issues that they care about.
So you were always going to end up in the political circus, if I can call it that.
Sure.
But what was your first paying job ever?
My first paying job was Coles in Beachborough. I was stacking shelves there. I was actually really disappointed because I wanted to work checkout because I could talk to people. And I got the job of stacking shelves, and it didn't last very long because I didn't enjoy that side of things too much.
Didn't last long because you continued to talk to people and therefore didn't stack enough shelves?
Oh, I think it was because I didn't get a check. Well, that's something like that. I was not enjoying it because this just didn't, that wasn't what I saw as something that was particularly enjoyable, and I really wanted to engage with people. So
you've also spent time as a concreters labourer.
Yeah.
Obviously for different reasons. That wasn't a holiday job.
No.
It was part of effectively your career development, if I can call it. Talk us through how you got into that.
So I had the opportunity to join a company called BGC. They're the largest private construction company in Australia, and they barely leave WA. And I was involved in predominantly residential construction, working for a guy called Kelvin Ryan and director Julian Ambrose, who are really great mates of mine. And part of that, Julian, who's the, I think it's son-in-law of the late Len Buckridge, he went, when he was in the formative years with Len, went off to a construction site for months and months and months and learnt the concrete formwork. And it was part of his sort of development in the company. So he wanted me to have the same sort of experience that he had. And I went off there for the summer. It was a really, really long, hot summer, but it was fantastic. Once I left it, it was great. I loved it. But during the time, it was quite a battle, quite a change.
Now, you've already established a reputation for being a very snappy dresser. Some say Eton-esque, some say Oxford. There's hankies, etc.
That's right.
At 5 paces. Concrete as labourer.
Yeah, it's a bit of a contrast, I suppose.
Were you a fashion trend setter in that too? I don't know how many ways you can wear some Ugg boots and a singlet.
Well, I'm not sure. It was, yeah, you're right. Steel caps and hard hats probably don't go too well. But no, I wasn't. I don't think I'm a trendsetter now at all. But I certainly just wore the gear they give you. It's actually quite heartening not having to worry about what you're going to wear, because you just wear the same blue pants and overalls and stuff like that, and boots, and just get out the door as quick as you can to get to site.
So we've already touched on the time you walked up to John Howard, the then Prime Minister, and gave him your aspirational business card, or your business card with aspirations on it. What did he say?
He said, he was a bit sort of, as I think anybody would be, a bit taken aback, and said to me, "Oh, when do you think this is going to happen?" I said, and I candidly said, quite seriously, said, "Oh, not too far off." I think it was.
How old were you at the time, Zak?
I was year 12 in high school. That was 17, I think it might be, or thereabouts. So yeah, it was reasonably dedicated at that age to making sure I wanted to. What
did your parents say about it beforehand when you told them this is what I'm going to do, and afterwards?
They thought it was a great joke. They thought it was. My parents aren't involved in politics at all. So, but they they admired, as I think most Australians do, certainly did, John Howard, and thought it was fantastic that I got the opportunity to meet him, and I met him many times after that as well. But they thought it was hilarious. They just thought it was a great joke. And you know what I got to say? Had it not been for that business card and that sort of moment in the Midland Town Hall, I don't think any of this would have happened. It's that I can look back to a point in time and think, because of that, it launched a complete direction and laid out a bit of a path for me that I'm very lucky to have achieved.
And I know it's very early days, but some will say that's the moment that you are being remembered for.
Yeah.
What would you see? I mean, you've been in Parliament since March, obviously in the process on the periphery of the House on the Hill for a while.
Yeah.
What would you like to be remembered for at this stage?
At this stage, I mean, I think I'd like to just be remembered for being a hard worker. I mean, I represent a district that I think has been already largely forgotten by the new government. I think it's an important thing to make sure we keep. I do everything I can to keep Mandurah on the map, I suppose it is. But I'd like just hard working. I mean, people go on about the questions that I've asked or whatever else it might be, and the amount of questions that we've asked. I largely think that's because the previous opposition were just lazy. So, and apparently because I ask more questions, that's somehow a problem. I just see it as hard work. I mean, we are elected to serve the people, and they should expect nothing less from their politicians.
I was going to ask you a bit later about what your ambition is in Parliament, other than asking another 1,000 questions in record time.
Yeah. But
you might as well tell me now. What are your ambitions? Let's just maybe talk about this term of government. So we've got another 3.5 years.
For this time now, I mean, we have to put it in context. Since I was, effectively 7 or 8 years old, this is exactly where I wanted to be my entire life. So I'm very lucky to have been elected at age 30. The average age, I think, of the Legislative Assembly Liberal Party members is about 58. So I'm under half, nearly half the average age of the Liberal Party members of Parliament. So I'm really lucky to have been elected at the time that I have. And to me, it's making sure I just lay solid foundations build solid foundations to represent my district and work hard to serve the party. Hopefully in a shadow portfolio position at some point in time, certainly as Parliamentary Secretary to the Leader of the Opposition, but also make sure I first and foremost represent Mandurah as aggressively and as forthrightly as I can in the Legislative Assembly.
Zak, I mean, lots been made of your age, and it's at the same time a lot's been made about the lack of fresh blood in Parliament, whether it be in the state Parliament or in federal Parliament. Labor's probably a bit more progressive than the Liberals traditionally. What can you do to sort of spread the word to, again, your contemporaries and encourage them that this is a career worth pursuing, and not to be put off by all the negativity or the perception stuff.
That's a really good question, Peter. I mean, it's largely speaking, it's their perception that they get of members of parliament. So that might be from the media, or it might be from whatever networks that, digital media that they're getting their news and information from. And it's about how we as parliamentarians treat each other and ourselves. You've currently got a member of parliament in there who's clearly unqualified, for example, and a member for Darling Range, who's misled largely his district to get elected. Now, we can't allow that to continue to happen, I don't think, and denigrate our occupation, because that doesn't really cast any appeal to anyone to come and join and serve in the parliament. So to me, it's about making sure we are, act with integrity and accountability and just hard-working members of parliament. And I think the better off that we do, and the more that we serve, and the better we serve the people of Western Australia, that will bring people in, regardless of their age. Young people are absolutely engaged with the issues of today, more than I think possibly ever before. They will want to get involved in issues, and it might not be party politics, but they'll want to get involved. And we should, as politicians, make sure that we engage with them. And I think what we'll do is we'll create a situation where they'll want to be more involved and hopefully seek to join Parliament at some point in time.
So we're on a break from Parliament at the moment. This is not your usual day because you've been to the gym.
Yeah.
So that might be a usual part.
That's true.
And got changed, but you're sitting down on the bench. That's the unusual bit. But tell us, what's in sort of 30 seconds, what's a typical Zak Kirkup day, members for Dawesville?
A lot of meetings and events to me. I mean, I have, on average, we average about 7 or 8 meetings a day. That's with constituents or residents in my district, plus going to organisations or events and things like that, trying to get some local media going, writing questions, trying to write up some issues for local media and the like. So it's quite busy. I get up around 4:45, 5 a.m. and I don't finish largely. I don't see my fiancée Michelle until 8 p.m. at night. So to me, I'm only in this. I know that I've only got another 3.5 years until the next election. I'm treating this as a contract with my district, and I want to work as hard as I can for as long as I can. I love the job, so the hours don't matter to me, but I hard work and meeting as many people as possible, talking to as many people as possible, and hoping to represent them in the media or whatever, in Parliament or whatever other avenue I can to help get things improved for them.
You've obviously got a very supportive fiancée, because
yeah,
that's a decent time commitment, but I suppose one goes into these sorts of relationships knowing that someone like you is also married to politics.
Yeah, you're right, and it's that's probably the biggest adjustment for me, is just how little you see the ones you love and your mates as well. I mates of mine who I've been with, been friends with my entire life, or certainly since high school, I see once every 5 or 6 weeks now, and that's a big adjustment. We used to see them every couple of weekends. Same as Michelle. We don't get. If I look back on the last month, we probably had 2 days to ourselves without an event or something that's been a duty to the people of my district. But again, for the time that you're elected, I might only have 3.5 years left, in which case I have to use every moment, and I think it's the right thing to do. So for that period of time, you serve the people who elect you first, party and the like second, and then certainly yourself last. So unfortunately, that means I don't get to see my fiancée as much as I want, and I miss her every day. But unfortunately, that's the way of life.
Zak, tell me about the top 4 issues in Dawesville.
Yeah, sure. So easily, it's the first issue is Pure Health Campus. It's a lack of investment in our local hospital. That's for governments, regardless of Liberal or Labor. It's just been a significant problem. Since 1997, that hospital hasn't expanded, and yet since 1997, our population in Mandurah has effectively doubled. That would be probably the most predominant issue. Second would be we've got some issues with a local a bridge there called the Estuary Bridge, which is a 3-lane bridge. When you try and leave the island every morning to go off to Perth or Mandurah train station, you've got to merge. It takes people 15 minutes each time to try and cross it. It should just be 2 lanes in and out. That'll cost about $80 million to build a new bridge or thereabouts. That's been a big issue. I would say law and order is probably third on the agenda. That's predominantly ice or methamphetamine use in the community. Not just Dawesville, but certainly Mandurah as a whole has got a problem with that. The police are doing a fantastic job. Crime's down about 10%, but ice addiction and methamphetamine use is a big problem. And fourth is probably the economy and jobs. Regardless of all the sort of spin that you get out there at the moment, the economy is not going as well as as is being talked about, and certainly in my district in Mandurah and in Mandurah generally speaking, unemployment and youth unemployment are still big problems. Mandurah for so long has always been an outlier anyway of unemployment. So, even when unemployment in Western Australia was at 4.75%, I think Mandurah was at about 8%. So it's always been sort of at the extreme end of things. And so when things are bad in Perth or things are bad in Western Australia, it's going to always be worse in Mandurah. So the economy and jobs are probably the fourth.
Which gets on to the next question, I suppose. What are the greatest development opportunities for your district? And I mean, you've sort of touched on it. You've got an ageing population, you've got probably not a huge number of local job opportunities there, so it's more, what can be done, or what would be a solution there?
Well, you're right, Peter. I mean, I represent the oldest per capita district in Western Australia. 22% of my electors are aged 70 or above, so it is an ageing population there. But the reality is there's plenty of opportunity for medical support or allied health and health services there. So as that ageing population continues to become more reliant, I suppose, on healthcare, you're going to have a situation where we need more doctors, more surgeons, more specialists, more allied care, more allied health. NDIS is a huge opportunity. So I would say what I'd like to see happen in Mandurah as a whole is that we get a more holistic approach to ensuring we get more health opportunities and health service providers in town, because to me that's where the market opportunities are, but certainly that's where the demands of the community will be as time goes on.
You're a fresh set of eyes in Parliament. What sort of a bit of red tape you'd like to kick into touch?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure it's red tape, but I'd like to see payroll tax removed altogether. It's a regressive tax. It makes no sense. It's to me, it only seeks to smother businesses and oppress them. Outside of getting rid of payroll tax, I'd be really keen to look at a focus of mine, certainly as I hopefully have my journey ahead in Parliament, is to see what we can do to help foster more emerging technologies and disruptive ideas in Western Australia. I mean, you've been around for a long time in WA. You've been writing about WA for a long period of time. We're a city and a state of entrepreneurs and people who are self-sufficient and leaders in their own right. Each and every small business operator gets out there and gets at it. There's a lot of ideas that are on the forefront that I wish that we were far more accommodating of. We can't keep saying things like, you look at, Uber, for example. We can't continue a situation where Uber isn't even an accepted practice by government at the moment. That we can't continue to move ahead with embracing ideas like autonomous vehicles or artificial intelligence and what that might offer us, or molecular technology, if we're still debating whether or not Uber should exist. I mean, we need to get over these hurdles and look towards the future. 10 years ago, we didn't have iPhones. 10 years ago, there was no Airbnb. In 10 years' time, what does that world look like? And how can Western Australia now position ourselves to make sure we're sort of the place that those companies want to come and start up and start those technologies, because we embrace it. So that should happen at a legislative level, if you ask me.
Let's step away from politics. Tell us something about you that would surprise us.
Something that surprised my fiance when we were sort of first getting together was that I was I quite like woodwork. I quite enjoy putting bookshelves together or desks together or benches together, whatever it might be. Not this, but yeah, so quite handy, I suppose. And my I have quite a passion for woodwork. I have since I was in high school.
Well, I do hope you are re-elected 3.5 years. But if not, you can go straight up to IKEA.
Yeah.
Because they are always looking for people to help out.
Put some flat pack together.
Doesn't work. Yeah.
That's right.
Favourite sport and sports team?
Well, favourite sports team is Peel Thunder. Very happily been a supporter of them for some years now. Great team that they in Mandurah, and they do so much good work for the community. My favourite sport that I participate in is probably running. I've got to say, it's not really a team sport, but I love it. I'm an only child, so I get the sort of the reliance on yourself and the self sort of motivation. I really love running.
How much running do you do? How often? And how do you do it? Do you do it on your own? Or are you
No, so I do it on my own, and I would say probably 5. I work out every day, but certainly 4 or 5 workouts of those are a run, and it goes from I average about 8Ks, but I try and get to about a half marathon every sort of once or 2 weeks at least, and that's the sort of, I've got to say, the reason I enjoy running so much is because that's one of the times that I get to just myself, and I can thinking time. It becomes quite meditative.
New Perth Stadium, it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of the products of Peel Thunder will play for the Dockers there.
Yeah, Bellas, yeah.
Are you a full strength or mid strength beer guy, and where do you sit on that argument?
Mate, full strength. There's no doubt. I mean, whatever you want, you can choose, but at least have full strength there on offer. I think it's just a good example. I think it's a nanny state. West Australians are far more responsible and able than what the government gives them credit for. If you ask me, I would like to make sure that we can get full strength beer there, and it should be available to everybody.
What's your favourite place in WA?
Aside from my district, aside from Mandurah, there's some beautiful beaches there. And in fact, one of the running tracks I've got in Falcon goes from the wetlands, the sort of Ramsar, internationally recognised wetlands where there's lots of birds. It's beautiful in sort of Erskine down to Falcon. Love that area. It's a really good run. Outside of that, I would say Castle Rock in Dunsborough. The member for VAS, Libby met him when Michelle and I went down there a couple of months ago now for 2 or 3 days with some friends of ours. Libby put me onto the Castle Rock run, which is a trail run, about 10k, 9k. But it was the most beautiful place I could ever imagine, and it just sort of comes out of nowhere. And it's having to run to get there, and it was a bit through all the bush, and then it just opens up to this most beautiful place.
You've touched on a couple of sort of hidden talents that are probably not hidden anymore, but there must be a hidden talent. You talked about woodwork. Is it on the musical side, or have you just got this amazing ability to recite each of the 1,000 questions you've asked?
I don't think I've got any. This is always the problem, because I feel like people always need a party trick or something like that, and I always worry that I don't think I have one. I don't know if I have any hidden talents. I mean, I think it's just stuff that I probably take for granted that I know that I do that people don't know about. But certainly, I'm not very dexterous when it comes to painting, and I'd love to get involved more with learning piano or violin or something like that. But no, unfortunately, I don't think I've got any hidden talent.
You're of the generation that understands the Triple J.
Yeah, mate, don't move it off a straight A. What a joke.
I haven't even asked the question
yet. Well, everyone. I love getting around with my mates, and now it'll be after the requisite citizenship ceremonies that come with being a member of Parliament, and it's great down on the Mandurah foreshore there. But I love getting together with your mates and get around the radio and have some beers and just enjoy the countdown. And to me, getting it off a straight A, I appreciate that that's what some listeners would have wanted, and I appreciate that it's not always been held on a straight A. It's been held sometimes in late February, I think it was, in some instances, or early March. But that's just a bit of a shame, I think, that they've moved it off. But
final question: where do you see yourself in 10 years' time, Zach?
Hopefully still elected, and hopefully driving in some sort of autonomous vehicle that the government's allowed to happen. But no, hopefully still as a member of Parliament and a senior contributor within the state of Western Australia. Oh, I'd like to be a senior contributor within the party, whatever that looks like. Yeah.
Very finally, Zach, I just want to do some word associations with you.
Sure.
Before I let you get off the bench and back to representing the people of Dawesville. Parliament.
Oh, sorry, should I clarify? These are meant to be one-word responses?
Yeah.
Okay, Parliament, long hours.
Constituents.
Life.
Elections.
Awesome.
Red tape.
Regressive.
The budget.
Spin.
GST.
Unfair.
John Howard.
Legend.
Colin Barnett.
Boss.
Mark McGowan.
I was going to think unreliable. Yeah.
Mike Nahan.
Genuine.
The media.
Important.
Twitter.
Noise.
NBN.
Shambles.
West Coast Eagles.
Successful.
FIFO workers.
Important.
This bench.
Great.
Zak Kirkup, thank you very much for joining us on the bench today.
Thanks, Peter.